My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Happy to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, so you're out in Oregon.
Yeah.
Um,
Doesn't look like Missouri anymore.
no. You're working on the place that's going to be our future retreat center home. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful place. So I'm glad you get to be there, and I'm glad we get to do this way too.
Me
So
too.
yeah, it's nice. So today we're talking about it is what it is. So, where would you like to start?
Well, it's probably a phrase that I started in our relationship. Um, Not about our relationship, but just about the period of time where, I was starting my journey basically.
Yeah.
And trying to come into a space of more allowing, accepting the circumstances of life and um, working towards being content
Mm,
with how things are,
mm,
not having to change my experience, but coming into a more, I guess, observational role,
yeah.
finding the good where you are.
So for you, more like a mantra.
Well, yes, and also, when feelings of judgment or victim, you know, perception, being victimy,
Mm,
because I was, it was the midst of my divorce, which went on forever, and just a lot of different challenges personally. It was important to be able to recognize when I was getting into those modes of thinking, whether it was being the victim or um, fighting with God,
mm,
feeling like I was being punished for things I'd done in the past, things like
mm.
that. And so it's a phrase with a lot of meaning for me to change my default network, I guess.
Yeah.
Shift gears
Yeah.
to say it is what it is and accept where I am. It doesn't mean that I'm turning passive or giving up or anything else. It's just recognizing instead of being in a judgment mode myself to shift into something else. Because
Yeah.
just those are challenges
Mm,
that help us grow. It is what
mm.
it is helps me remember that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
still does.
Yeah. Was it something that you feel like was always helpful? Was there a period of time where that phrase maybe meant something else, maybe more dismissive or maybe more passive? Or do you think that not for you?
Not for me. I don't think
Mm,
so anyway. I mean, you may have made other observations along the way. I am in and out of presence. It's just the human condition and more so present now than before, but still it comes and goes.
yeah.
So I may have said it in a dismissive way, but I don't think I've used it that way because it's significant for me.
Mm.
There was another phrase that you taught me, which is, of course they did.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I probably have used that in a more sassy way. I think, of course they did, but it's useful regardless, just because it also helps reset your brain
Mm. Well,
into I am where I am.
Mm.
And I don't have to be trending downward or depressed or victimized or anything else.
Yeah.
Instead of stuck and trying to figure out the, you know, the motivation behind other people's behaviors. So I
Mm.
think the two phrases actually go hand in hand. And I know it is what it is episode, but of course they did, is a really helpful adjunct.
Yeah.
Has been for me.
Yeah.
And it's a way
Yeah.
for me to just like shift out of it, It's like
Mm-hmm.
those MRFers, how could they
Mm.
blah blah blah. Well, of
Mm.
course they did. I think
Mm.
is your wisdom, and maybe you could share with us your wisdom behind it, what it means to you.
Sure. For me, what I noticed over the years was that people, when they would come into therapy, there was often like an element of surprise that they were demonstrating, which I felt like was genuine at somebody's, behavior that was really that person's pattern. And so, of course, me sitting in the chair I'm sitting in, I can see the pattern happening. And so, for me, if someone came in and were sharing with me a behavior of another person, it didn't matter. I mean, family member, boss, coworker, doesn't matter, friend, it wasn't surprising to me. And when I think about how do we change our the connections in our brain, for me, it's having conversation with ourselves. And so when someone would do something, even if we felt surprise in our body, if we could say to ourselves, of course they did. Of course they did. Maybe it would stop being so surprising for my body. Maybe it would stop being so traumatic for me to be so surprised when it really was their pattern they were demonstrating. And so it is for me when I'm sharing that with someone really an attempt to change our body's experience of that. So of course they did. Of course they did. And it's not about them really as it is about me, the person that's experiencing it.
We have choice.
We have choice.
How
Right.
will we react?
How will we react? Right. And I recognize that, we can have this incongruence, because trauma to me is, what did our body not predict happening negatively? So if I can train my body and my mind to expect it instead of continuing to be surprised, maybe it will cause me less pain. Maybe I won't feel as helpless. Maybe I can find more safety even in myself if I cannot be surprised by the pattern of behavior that someone exhibits. So I think about that. And then I think with that, I need to share a little bit about patterns and exceptions to behavior. Because we often, and I don't know why, it's not something I've studied, but why we can give so much value to exceptions to behavior instead of patterns of behavior. And I'm sure there's a reason. But whether we, negatively value exceptions to behavior, like someone in our life consistently in their pattern shows that they love us and care for us, and that is demonstrated regularly, and then they have a bad day or they're not well and they act out of their pattern, and then we can blow that up into, oh my gosh, whatever, they don't care about me, they don't love me, they don't, right? When it was just an exception to their behavior. It's not their pattern. And then also, if you want to go the other way, which is someone consistently shows us the pattern of behavior is not healthy and it's harmful to us, and then they do something that's an exception to their behavior, it's positive, and then we overvalue that. And then it's like, oh gosh, okay.
Well, that makes me think of narcissism or narcissistic people or narcissists.
Sure. And I don't think it has to be that, but sure. And in the narcissist world realm, right? And whether you're, have a personality disorder or, again, we all have narcissistic traits, but again, I'm looking at exceptions to behavior versus patterns of behavior. And so, but yes, that would be part of someone who is a narcissist, that they would do one caring, empathetic, selfless thing once every 3 or 6 months. And then we're like, oh, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And it's like, really, no, their pattern of behavior is really very harmful.
Or multiple in a row. Love
Or,
bombing, I think is what
or
it's
multiple
called.
in a row. Right.
Yeah.
But again, exceptions to behavior versus patterns of behavior.
That it's
So,
a big teaching, babe. And it's one that I'm still learning. So it's part of your wisdom as a therapist for all the thousands or tens of thousands of hours you've spent working with people. But I believe my personal experience, and I would guess this is common. We are so when you first start down that road, you're living in a space of just reacting to pretty much everything that happens. You're not really present.
right.
Don't have perspective. And so there's no clue about people's patterns and how that plays into relationship and understanding of actions. And so I think that that's where people find themselves. So when you first started talking to me about patterns, I was like, she just thinks differently. You do, and not in the bad, the Theresa doesn't know what she's talking about. Not like that. Just that you process differently. You do process differently than I do. We all do.
Right.
But that is not just a processing difference. It's a knowledge difference and an experience difference.
Yeah. And I do think it was easier for me, babe, because my brain does see patterns.
Yeah.
It can't help it. How I value those patterns, I think, is the wisdom. I think
Cool.
I think seeing it is easy for my brain, valuing it. And so I'm very cautious. I mean, I've had my own misvaluing of patterns over the years. And so I'm very cautious when I meet someone new who I feel like is someone that having relationship with would be healthy and connected and fun. And I'm asking myself, are you observing patterns? Or do you see what you want to see? Is there some area that you're lacking or struggling with? What's this reaction about for you? Right. And just keep watching patterns, slowing down, taking time, and it doesn't always work. I mean, I was at the office right before this and, talking to, two of my team, and we were having a great conversation. And I realized there was nothing slow about that conversation. I was happy. It was like, oh, like energy, emotion. And it wasn't bad, It was just like, I was in somewhere in my brain. I wasn't as present as I would have liked to have been. So
I would,
practice.
it is interesting because I'm intuitive. That's how I walk in the world. And um, I don't know. I think when we're seeing patterns, if you're able to see it or inclining the mind to see it, it helps
Right.
you with choice, right?
Absolutely.
How will I respond to this?
Right.
Or, like you said, what value do I place on that experience with that person?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that a lot of times still I'm just in the, in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that? For me,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tell me more about what you're thinking about that.
That a lot of times in interactions with people, I don't have a process going on where I'm assessing, where
Mm,
are we? I'm just experiencing the experience.
right. Right.
Um, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I was just, it's an interesting discussion, right?
Well, yeah, it makes me think about, are you talking about that in those situations that your observer isn't engaged? Is
I
that what
would
you're
say
saying?
that's true. And then I would say that it's afterward for me where the observations may or may not arise. It depends on the experience, right?
Okay. Okay.
More positive experience, probably less introspection.
Mm,
More negative experience, probably more introspection.
mm,
Looking at how did that happen and what
mm,
was, um, how does that fit
mm.
into my experiences with this person? I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
Yeah.
more work to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I
And
think
maybe we just, I mean, I know you and I process very differently. And
yeah,
maybe that's just a difference that doesn't, mean that I'm not on a, path of growth.
sure. Sure. Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say that my observer developed as a result of starting meditation or whatever. It was there.
Yeah.
Um, again, I think that it's just been I've done a lot of work on its role and its voice and um, and its value. Yeah, I do think so.
What
I
do you think? Huh?
no, your microphone cut out a bit, so I didn't hear what
Oh,
you
I put
said.
my hands up in front of
Oh,
it. Let me ask you this question. When I raised
yeah.
my arms, I blocked it.
Oh, okay.
Um, what do you think the interplay is between telling yourself it is what it is, or of course they did, and the observer role, recognizing patterns? Is there a danger associated with using those phrases to change your mindset?
Okay. So if I think about it is what it is, I, you touched on it earlier about the victim piece. I think it can be a resignation for sure. Like I have no control. Somebody said something to me earlier today about I don't have choice. And, and I said, okay, let's relanguage that. I think it's really important. You do have choice. What you're choosing is to stay, and that's okay. But when you tell yourself you don't have choice, you increase fear in your body, you increase helplessness in your body. And so for me, well, it is what it is, can be a helplessness piece, a resignation piece. And so I think that could be not very helpful. As opposed to using it like you were talking about earlier, which is it is what it is. Now, what do I choose?
That
Those
really
are
is a critical second part,
absolutely
becoming present versus just resigning. You may not even go into full victim. You may just rush it under the rug and then you
right.
get to deal with it later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the same could be said about, of course they did. Is it a resignation? Right? Am I reinforcing helplessness? Or is it, of course they did, reinforcing to me the reality of what's happening? So then I have an awareness that I can choose differently. Should I do that? Because I don't have to do that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there doesn't have to be action taken with, of course they did, to me. It
Hmm.
it is also a way of diffusing the power that else's actions have over you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because in a way, it severs that um, cord, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
would guess, now that we are digging a little bit deeper, sometimes it would prolong my um, victim, but for the most part, no.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to be controlled by that. I'm not going to let my emotions, my anger or my indignance or whatever it is in response to that. No,
Mm-hmm.
of course they did. And
Right.
move on.
Right.
And I think there's more choice after that, which is, will I continue
Yes.
having interaction or how will I interact differently, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Powerful tools that need some practice to be used wisely, right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. More conversation, always more conversation. Um, it's interesting, tying it into the knowing, I mentioned this earlier. When you told me about, the phrase, and that it was helpful for you. Um,
It is what it is.
yeah, it is what it is. Right, right. Um, we were at this antique store and and we saw it, like on this, like, it was I don't know, like 2 or 3 inch high, 16, 18-inch long board, like on this shelf in this room at this antique store. And and we were laughing, ha ha ha. I remember that.
And I
And
liked
then
it. Yeah.
yeah, and then later you were like, "Oh, I wish I had gotten that." And I was like, "Well, go by and get it." And you went by and it wasn't there. And it was funny because I knew it was there. That was my knowing. And I can't tell you why. I just knew it was there. And so we went together and you showed me and you were like, "See, it's not here." And I was like, "It is here." I know it's here. And and how those like booze and antique stores can just be full of stuff, right? Like they just bring in stuff. And so I just started digging around, and in this back corner against the wall, it had fallen off the shelf. There it was, laying there. And you still have it and it's displayed.
It is. And one of my favorite spots. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, the fact that it was that important for the universe to bring it to you, to give to me,
Mm-hmm.
speaks volumes about its power in my life.
Yeah.
Then and now, even I still like it,
Mm-hmm.
still find it helpful, and um, which leads me to some people don't find it helpful. There's a family member that I was talking to at your parents' place who was entirely reactive to that.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. I hate when people say
Yeah.
that. And I'm not being disrespectful to her,
Mm-hmm.
but she was very reactive, and I was just like, wow, I find it really helpful, actually. So, what do you think and I don't mean about her, but what do you think the reactivity that people have to that? Where does that come from? What do you think about it?
Well, what I imagine is several different things. I think it can be used, again, as a deflection, by people, like to me, it wouldn't be any different if you're using it that way to be, it's just who I am. you know?
Right. I mean, it's like in legal terms, you call some arguments a shield and sometimes it's a sword. So
Okay.
it would be another person saying it to you as just an excuse for whatever it is they did, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so I could see in that regard, if they have somebody in their life who's used that or a form of that as a deflection, as a way to not change anything, to not put any effort into, there being a different interaction or relationship. I could see how it could be very triggering for someone.
If they've experienced that, I think we can use it on ourselves too, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. What are you thinking when you say that?
Oh, excusing bad choices.
Oh, like if we
I
say it to
shouldn't say
some,
excusing, it's dismissing. It could be used dismissively about bad choices or,
yeah,
uh, yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah, we could use it, right, to be deflective and avoidant and
Of our own behavior.
yeah, of our own
It
behavior.
is, that's
Right,
how I am.
right.
And sometimes how I am is just fine. And sometimes we, instead of defending ourselves, you know, we take time on our own to think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that who I want to be?
Yes. I mean, what I was thinking was, is it even a thoughtful response, right? Um, if someone asks me something and I really take the time to answer it, to be thoughtful, to be curious with myself, what is that about for me? Um, I don't know. It's interesting. I guess there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to live in the desert. I want to live in the forest by water in the mountains. And that is what it is. I mean, I don't know that anybody's going to talk me into wanting to live in the desert. Um, but, I think about, um, parenting and that conversation, that Luke and I had last week, where he was really upset with me for rescuing, you know, you and him. Yeah, it was rescuing, not rescuing as in the good rescuing, like we've talked about, but the codependent, like I need to manage this relationship because, as what he said to me is, you don't trust the health of mine and Walker's relationship. And I was like, ooh, yeah. And I could have said, it is what it is. I'm going to do it anyway, right? I'm going to stay not trusting, essentially, is what the response would have meant, as opposed to, what is that about for me? Why do I feel the need? What am I afraid of? And then the response being, you're right, not helpful. Thank you for teaching me. And I will work on that because that's mine. Very different responses.
Very different uses of a powerful phrase. I think there's a lot of phrases that we use loosely.
Hmm. What else is coming to mind?
Oh, nothing, but I know that it's true. Just
Hmm.
age-old phrases that come out that if you toss the ball in the air and you're spinning it around, looking at all the aspects like we are in our conversation, all of a
Hmm.
sudden you realize, wow, that's powerful stuff, and I need to use it appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're very thoughtful or intentional about our conversations. I think it's so much of it's just reactive.
Why we're here.
Right.
To help ourselves learn and to help our listeners.
Yeah.
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 Just think.
Yeah. Slow down. What is that really about for me? What do I really want? Because that's something I'll say. What do I really want? Yeah. What do you really want? What do you really need right now? Yeah.
Heartfelt way.
Hmm.
Because again, that's another phrase, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What do you really want?
Yeah.
Well, versus what do you really want
Yeah.
or need?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
Right?
Relationship killer.
Right.
No, there's like one of the topics that I've thrown out for us to either talk about or write a blog on is relationship killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phrases that we use that, whew,
Yeah. What do you want from me is very different than what do you really want right now? Not the same words. I mean, it's the same words, right? But not the same energy behind them at all. I mean, when I ask that, what do you really want right now? I mean, it's really curious. Like, I really do want to know, what's happening. When I ask myself that, what do I really want right now? What do I really want right now? I'm being genuinely curious with myself. Yeah.
it's a really good question to ask ourselves, isn't it?
Hmm.
A lot of times just we don't think about it and we don't know. We're just going through life. Whew, me
Yeah.
included.
Hmm. Yeah. It's practice. I mean, I just keep it practicing. I mean, to me, again, always an experiment, always practicing. I don't always do it well. I mean, it's like when Luke and I were having that conversation, he was telling me, you are not doing this very well right now. And I'm like, I am trying. I am so tired. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm really trying. I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah. Um, and what he needed from me, he couldn't tell me. I mean, he was able to talk about it the next day. But in that moment, he couldn't. He was just in distress and struggling and feeling abandoned emotionally by me because I could not connect with the amount of emotional dysregulation he was experiencing. Um, yeah.
Glad you're not perfect. Oh, I'm
Nope.
glad you're human. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I just, when we've talked about this in prior podcasts, which is um, we can express a lot of wisdom. It doesn't mean you and I always follow it
mm.
or have
Sure. Or yeah, or have it. I mean,
it.
like I'm sitting there. I mean, I was trying so hard. I mean, literally for like an hour and a half. And I just was like, I cannot pull this up. I cannot, like, it was not coming. It wasn't coming. Um, and then I just said, I'm so sorry, because I was tired and I was, defending myself kindly. I was doing it very gently, um, but it wasn't helpful. Um, I couldn't see clearly or think clearly, you know, in that moment to really um, value the amount of pain he was experiencing. Yeah, which is hard.
Relationship is hard.
Yeah. All the people I want to do it the most with all the time, right? You and the kids. Yeah. And it just doesn't always happen. For me, it's really that, the conversation ended, well, as we were, working through the emotion part of it. And even though I couldn't get it all, that night, um, I was able to start hearing his, pain and just be, with him differently. I think my energy was really calm at first, but it was probably protected and, had my own shame going on. Even and it was because I knew before I even sent the text to him that it was rescuing. But I felt like, well, I have to do it anyway. That's my responsibility, and it wasn't. So I'm sure I was more protected at the beginning, knowing, which I did tell him. I knew I shouldn't have sent it. When he very first said it, it's like, why did you? I was like, because I was tired and I wasn't thinking clearly. Yeah. But I also don't want, my kids, as much effort as I put into having a healthy relationship with them, I don't want them to think I'll always do it well. I don't want them to think that I do it perfectly. I want them to know they can, lose their shit too. I want them to know that they can be human regardless of the skills I've learned and have taught them. It's just not the way life is. And so, not helpful. And that's something that Luke and I will have more conversation about, his reaction, for me. I did say a little bit about it, but it's just like, I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't expect you. I don't have that expectation. But I do think the amount of effort I put into doing it well can lead them to believe maybe I do, even though I don't, because I wasn't triggered. I wasn't upset about what happened, before. I was just tired and rescuing, but I wasn't upset. So, yeah, we're just so complex. We are. Anything else that comes to mind about it, babe?
No, I think it's been a really good conversation and helpful to be intentional about what tools we use, how we use them. But ultimately, for me, it's about examining our lives. It's great to be in the moment and just experience sometimes. It's just like traveling. I always say some of the best adventures are when we deviate from the itinerary and just go down that side road or up that
Absolutely.
different street, whatever it is, because we don't have a
Hmm.
preconceived notion of how it's supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Right.
Stepping into the unknown is while it is I think often fearful is really like, wow. I mean, we have just seen some of the most amazing things when we just were like, turn down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the cliff dwellings we found outside, like north of Sedona, out of nowhere? We are just, hey, let's drive in the country because I like to do that. And all of a sudden we're like, what's that?
Hmm. Hmm. And there's like two rangers there and
Yeah,
maybe like six people.
yeah,
They hardly get any visitors
right.
because they're out in the middle of nowhere. And we would never even have known to look for it. We just came upon it. Yeah. And it was amazing. Hmm.
So, I don't want to be in the moment analyzing all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do just want to experience, but I also believe it's really important for us to step back
Hmm.
from time to time or frequently and
Hmm.
examine the things that we're talking about. What do I really want? What do I want? Why do I behave the way I behave? And why did I use that phrase?
Hmm.
Is it productively or was it a use that just saved up troubles for later,
Yeah. Deflection, avoidance, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Dismissive. Yeah.
it builds up.
Hmm.
That's
Oh.
a great example. It builds up until you're sick inside your
Mm.
body. And it was really important. I thought a really thoughtful piece for you when you said, listen, it's of course they did as a way to remind my body, to get in touch
Mm.
with my body.
Yeah.
And that's a critical piece that I need to keep working on.
Hmm.
So
Our body is so important. I really do wish it was something that we taught more, focused on more. I know we're working on it. I mean, we're trying to make it more common language. I mean, not just us. I mean, there are more people than us talking about what you're knowing. What do you feel in your body? How do you value that? But that is part of what all of this is about. What is your body telling you? How to value it accurately, learning to trust yourself.
And learning the interaction between the brain mind and the body mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because dismissive just ignores and it builds up in the body.
Mm-hmm.
The issues in the tissues, right?
Well, it's so funny because there's different phrases around that. The issues in the tissues. Yes, your body holding the body keeps the score. Or, oh gosh, there's another book. I can't think of the name of it right now. The Gabor Mate book. Yeah, it's not coming to me, but we'll put it in the notes. And then there's the tissue issue, which is a different, which is when someone's in distress, instead of just letting them cry and snot all over themselves, we interrupt their process by handing them Kleenex.
Rescuing. Yeah.
Yeah, we may not even have that intention, but we often are interrupting someone's process. Yeah. People's deep emotional pain can cause us a lot of distress too. We can bring up our own feelings of helplessness, and I don't know what to do with that. And so,
like when I hear babies crying, it's like
yeah,
distress. So that issue is still in my tissue. But I recognize it, so I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Use the terms or the phrases dismissively without the additional pieces, then it can be storing up.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't have any doubt that whatever pieces are left will get worked on when we have grandchildren. Yeah. What does that do to your body when I say that?
Fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was a great caregiver. I just, I would respond to Libby crying in the night, etc., but it still caused me great distress.
Yeah.
But in that, I guess when I have the ability to comfort, it's not nearly, I mean, initially the reaction is distress, but then when I'm providing love and comfort, then I'm not in distress, helping, soothe.
Yeah.
When it is not something that, somebody else's child.
Like on an airplane, because that's
airplane,
what causes you distress.
Whatever it is, and it's so distressing to me.
Yeah.
I used to get angry. I don't get angry anymore. When you said that, all of a sudden just distress. So
our body holds a lot.
it does.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
It is what it is.
It is.
But what am I going to choose to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we can. Yeah, we can. It's hard work. Absolutely worth it. Absolutely.
Love you.
I love you too, babe.
Conversations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.